I smiled at him that morning. I poured his coffee the way he liked it. 2 sugars, a little milk, stirred 3 times. I kissed his cheek before he left for work. And the whole time, I already knew the truth. I knew exactly what he had done. I knew exactly who he had become. But I said nothing. Because silence, when used the right way, is not weakness. Silence can be a trap. And he was about to walk right into mine. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what happened over the next 4 months. How a man who thought he was untouchable lost everything he built, piece by piece, and never even saw it coming until it was too late. This is the story of how I stopped being the woman who forgave and became the woman who watched, waited, and made sure justice finally had a name. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with everything, stay with me. Because what happened next might just change the way you look at silence forever. 3 years earlier, my life looked like something out of a dream. I had married Daniel, a man everyone admired. He was charming, hardworking, and endlessly convincing. Friends called us the perfect couple. Family looked at us like proof that good things still happen to good people. We built a small business together, a home decor brand that started in our garage and grew into something real. I handled the creative side, design, branding, the soul of the company. Daniel handled the money, the contracts, the partnerships. I trusted him completely. I trusted him the way you trust someone you've built your whole world around. For 2 years, everything felt solid. We worked late nights together, celebrated small wins, dreamed about the future, a bigger studio, maybe even opening in another city. I believed we were a team, in business and in life. But slowly, small things started to shift. Daniel began taking calls in another room. He started traveling for supplier meetings that never quite added up. He'd come home distracted, tired in a way that had nothing to do with work. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself that trust means not jumping to conclusions. I remember one evening in particular. We were sitting at the dinner table, and I asked him a simple question about a new supplier he'd mentioned. He answered so quickly, so smoothly, that it almost sounded rehearsed. I brushed it off. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, this was the man who used to leave little notes in my lunch bag when we were dating. The man who stayed up all night helping me finish our very first product catalog. How could that same man be hiding something from me now? Looking back, that's exactly how people like Daniel operate. They don't change all at once. They shift so gradually that by the time you notice something is wrong, you've already spent months convincing yourself it isn't. I didn't know yet that trust, when placed in the wrong hands, becomes the easiest thing in the world to break. It started with a message. I was using Daniel's laptop one evening because mine had crashed before a client deadline. A notification popped up on the screen, nothing dramatic, just a name I didn't recognize, paired with a message that made my stomach drop. I won't repeat the exact words, but it was enough. Enough to tell me this wasn't a coworker. Enough to tell me this wasn't nothing. I sat there for a long time, staring at that screen, feeling something break quietly inside me. Not loudly, not with tears at first, just a slow, cold understanding that the life I thought I had wasn't the life I actually had. I could have confronted him right there, thrown the laptop across the room, demanded answers. Part of me wanted to, but something stopped me. If I confronted him now, with nothing but a message on a screen, he would deny it. He would explain it away. He was good at that, turning suspicion into guilt, making me feel like the unreasonable one for even asking. So instead, I closed the laptop. I placed it back exactly where it had been, and I made a decision that would define everything that came after. That night, I lay awake next to him, listening to him breathe, feeling like a stranger in my own bed. Every memory we'd shared suddenly felt like it needed to be re-examined. Was he thinking about her when he told me he loved me last week? Was he distracted that night we celebrated our anniversary? Or was I imagining it now, coloring the past with the pain of the present? I could feel the old version of myself wanting to shake him awake and demand the truth. But another part of me, a part one didn't know I had until that moment, whispered something different. Asterisk, don't give him the chance to prepare an answer. Not yet. Asterisk. I decided to watch. Quietly. Patiently. Without giving him a single reason to suspect that I already knew. Over the following weeks, I paid attention in ways I never had before. I noticed the timing of his work trips. I noticed how our business accounts had small transactions I didn't recognize. Nothing large enough to trigger alarm bells right away, but enough to feel wrong once I started looking closely. I began keeping a quiet record. Dates, screenshots, bank statements I asked to review under the excuse of getting more involved in the business side. Daniel, confident and unsuspecting, didn't think twice about handing them over. He believed I was simply becoming a more engaged partner. He had no idea I was building a case. What I discovered over those weeks was worse than I imagined. The woman from the message wasn't just an affair. She was someone Daniel had brought into parts of our business without my knowledge. Small contracts, side payments, decisions made behind my back that put our company, the one I had poured my heart into, at risk. He wasn't just betraying our marriage. He was betraying everything we had built together. I remember sitting alone in our studio one night, surrounded by the designs I had created with my own hands, and feeling something shift inside me. The sadness was still there, but underneath it, something sharper was forming. Not hatred, not the desire to destroy him out of anger. I also started talking to people around us differently, not to gossip, not to accuse, but to listen. I asked our accountant simple questions about cash flow, framed as curiosity about understanding the business better. I asked Michael, our silent partner, if he'd noticed any changes in supplier pricing. Every small conversation added another piece to a puzzle Daniel had no idea I was assembling. There were nights I cried quietly in the shower so he wouldn't hear, letting the water hide what I couldn't say out loud yet. There were mornings I looked at him across the breakfast table and felt a strange kind of grief, grieving a version of him that maybe never really existed the way I believed it did. But grief and patience can exist in the same person at the same time. I let myself feel the sadness without letting it slow down the plan quietly forming in my mind. Just a quiet, steady resolve. He would face the truth, in full, in front of everyone who mattered. And he would face it because of choices he made, not because of anything I had to force. I didn't want revenge built on chaos. I wanted something clean, something undeniable. So I made a plan with 3 simple goals: protect what I had built, expose what he had hidden, and make sure that when the truth came out, there would be no room for him to twist it. Step 1 was protecting the business. Quietly, I began transferring more operational control into my name, using legitimate, legal channels. I contacted our accountant privately, explained that I wanted a full, independent audit for growth planning purposes. Daniel signed off on it without hesitation, still unaware that this audit would eventually reveal every hidden transaction he had made. Step 2 was gathering everything properly. Not just screenshots and gut feelings, but real documentation, bank records, contracts, dates that lined up perfectly with his so-called business trips. I wasn't building a trap out of anger. I was building a case out of facts. Step 3 was patience. The hardest part. I kept smiling. I kept making his coffee. I kept asking about his day like nothing had changed, even as every conversation confirmed a little more of what I already knew. People sometimes assume revenge has to be loud, dramatic confrontations, shouting matches, doors slamming. But real justice is often quiet. It's patient. It waits until the moment when the truth can't be denied, twisted, or explained away. I wasn't ready to confront him yet. I was waiting for the one moment when everything would come together at once. And that moment was closer than I thought. Just when I thought I understood the full picture, I learned something that changed everything. Daniel wasn't just involved with one person outside our marriage. The woman from the message was connected to a supplier we worked with, and together, they had been quietly redirecting parts of our business deals into a separate account. Small percentages here and there, skimmed off contracts, disguised as processing fees and consulting costs. It wasn't just a broken heart anymore. It was theft. Calculated, deliberate theft from the business I had helped build from nothing. I remember the night I found the final piece of evidence, a signed agreement between Daniel and this supplier, dated back almost a year. A year. He had been doing this for a year while I trusted him with everything. I sat on the floor of our home office, papers spread out around me like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. I thought about all the late nights I had spent designing new product lines, believing every sale, every contract, every ounce of growth was built on honesty. Instead, a piece of it had been quietly stolen out from under me the entire time. I thought about calling my sister, my closest confidant, just to say the words out loud to someone. But I stopped myself. Not yet. The fewer people who knew before the plan was complete, the safer that plan would be. For a moment, I let myself feel it all. The anger, the heartbreak, the disbelief that someone I loved could look me in the eyes every single day while quietly dismantling everything we had built together. But I didn't break down. I didn't confront him in the middle of the night, screaming into the dark. Instead, I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, "Now I have everything I need." The betrayal was complete, and so was my plan. I decided the truth needed to come out in a way Daniel could never talk his way around, in front of the people whose opinions mattered most to him. I scheduled what I called a quarterly business review, something Daniel and I had done before, a casual meeting with our accountant, our silent business partner Michael, and occasionally a family member who had invested early in the company. Daniel agreed without suspicion. He had no reason to think this meeting was any different from the others. In the days before, I prepared everything carefully. Printed documents, verified timelines, a short, calm summary that laid out the facts without emotion, without accusations, just numbers, dates, and signatures that spoke for themselves. I didn't plan to yell. I didn't plan to cry. I planned to simply lay the truth on the table and let it speak louder than anything I could say. The night before the meeting, Daniel came home late again, kissed my forehead, and told me he loved me. I looked at him, and, for the first time in months, I didn't feel sadness. I felt ready. The meeting began like any other. Coffee poured, papers organized, casual conversation about growth projections. Then I opened the folder. I laid out the audit results first, quiet, factual, undeniable. Then the bank statements showing the unexplained transfers. Then the signed agreement between Daniel and the supplier, the one with dates that lined up perfectly with the messages I had first discovered months earlier. The room went silent. Michael, our business partner, looked between me and Daniel, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. Our accountant, who had run the audit without knowing the full story, simply nodded, confirming everything line by line. Daniel's face went pale. He tried to speak, tried to explain, tried to turn to the same tactics that had worked on me for months: confusion, deflection, blame. But this time, there was nothing to twist. The evidence didn't care about his excuses. Numbers don't lie. Dates don't shift to protect someone's ego. I looked at him, calm and steady, and said the only thing I had prepared. "I gave you months to be honest with me. You chose silence. So I used silence too, to learn the truth instead of being fed lies." He had no answer. For the first time since I'd known him, Daniel, confident, charming, always in control, was completely speechless. What happened after that meeting unfolded quickly. With the evidence clearly laid out, our business partner and legal advisor moved to formally remove Daniel from any financial authority within the company. The audit results were shared with our lawyer, who confirmed that legal action could be pursued for the misused funds, though ultimately, I chose a path that protected the business without dragging it through a lengthy public battle. Daniel lost his position in the company we had built together. He lost the trust of people who had known him for years. Word spreads quietly in small business communities, and slowly, the version of Daniel that people once admired began to crumble under the weight of what he had actually done. Our marriage, of course, ended. But by the time the papers were signed, I didn't feel broken. I felt like someone who had survived something and come out clearer on the other side. The business, the one I had feared losing more than anything, survived. In fact, it grew stronger, cleaner, rebuilt on decisions I now made with full clarity and full control. Daniel, meanwhile, was left to rebuild his life from a foundation he had cracked with his own hands. In the weeks that followed, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he had tried reaching out to old business contacts, hoping to start something new. But reputations, once broken by facts rather than rumors, are difficult to repair. People remembered the audit. People remembered the signed agreement with his name on it. Trust, once lost in a small business community, doesn't rebuild itself quickly. I won't pretend it was easy watching someone I once loved lose so much. There were quiet moments, late at night, when I still felt an ache thinking about the man I thought I married. The one who left notes in my lunch bag. The one who stayed up late helping me build our very first catalog. But I learned to separate that memory from the man who had actually stood in front of me in that meeting room, speechless, with nothing left to say. The version of Daniel I grieved wasn't the version who had betrayed me. And it took time to make peace with that difference. People sometimes ask me if I regret staying silent for those months instead of confronting him the moment I found out. I tell them the truth. Silence wasn't about weakness. It was about strategy. It gave me time to see the full picture instead of reacting to just one piece of it. It gave me the power to walk into that room not as a hurt wife making accusations, but as someone standing firmly on undeniable truth. Betrayal has a way of making us want to react immediately, to scream, to accuse, to demand answers in the heat of the moment. But sometimes, the strongest response isn't the loudest one. Sometimes, it's the quiet, patient choice to gather the truth fully before letting it speak for itself. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: people who betray you often count on your emotional reaction to protect them. They expect anger, tears, chaos, moments they can use to confuse or manipulate you. But when you respond with calm, with facts, with patience, that's when they truly have nowhere left to hide. My silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. I've thought a lot about the moment I first saw that message on his laptop. How easy it would have been to throw it in his face right then, to let the anger take over completely. Maybe it would have felt satisfying for a few minutes. But it wouldn't have given me the truth. It would have given him a chance to talk his way around it, the way he had talked his way around so many things before. Waiting wasn't about punishing him slowly. It was about making sure that when the truth finally came out, it came out whole, undeniable, complete, impossible to reshape into something smaller than it really was. And in the end, it wasn't my anger that cost Daniel everything. It was the truth he thought he could hide from me forever, a truth that walked into that room, sat down at the table, and refused to stay silent any longer. If this story meant something to you, remember this: you don't always have to shout to be heard. Sometimes, the quietest people are the ones planning the loudest kind of justice, the kind built not on revenge, but on truth.